This is the start of the foundation for a 40-foot by 54-foot galvanized steel Quonset style building. The year started out very wet and it would continue for the next few months. Here I am, fat and out of shape. I just finished managing a long-term project and ate one too many coffee and donuts. I purchased a lot of cull lumber and used boards for the formwork on this project. Local auctions and classifieds can be a good source of used lumber for a good price. I already have the perimeter of the building marked out. I measured back the width of the form boards to drive in the stakes.
This is too big.
Driving the stakes is made easy due to the wet ground, but the wet ground makes it more difficult to maintain a level line on top of the forms, as the stakes are more susceptible to movement.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
If you have someone to help drive stakes, it can make this work a lot easier by taking turns. If not, prepare for a workout. Even though the ground is wet, after driving about 5 stakes, it starts to become real work. There are metal stakes you can pick up from your local concrete supply store, and you can probably rent them as well. The metal stakes drive in a lot easier and work great because they are very thin. But being very thin, they do not stay in place as well over time, especially in wet ground. Seeing as I will be doing most of the forming work myself, the construction time will be extended and I need a sturdy stake. At this moment, the foundation has a depth of 16 inches around the perimeter. That will later change after I send the drawings to an engineer for some regional modifications as part of the permitting process. When you purchase an engineered metal building, you will receive with the building a set of engineered drawings including a base connection detail and a concrete footing detail that is not specific to any area or approved. Additional engineering will be required for your footing detail by an engineer licensed in the area you want to build. Depending on your area, the foundation design and depth that came with your building may be adequate or it may not be adequate. In my case, it was not, and the depth of the concrete footing increased by 4 inches. I had already started and near completed the form work for the 16-inch slab before receiving the modifications back from the engineer. Part of his modifications were changing the slab depth from 16 inches around the perimeter to 20 inches and thickening the shop floor from 4 inches to 6 inches to better handle the weight of the heavy equipment that will be parked there. The original plan was to pour the 16-inch slab on the surface and then backfill up to the slab. But with the change in depth of the foundation slab from 16 inches to 20 inches, the amount of fill needed in the area would have been too much, so I decided to dig a trench to lower the foundation. At this time, the ground was too wet to start digging in the perimeter, as well as compacting the center. So in the meantime, I had some gravel delivered for under the shop floor. But the yard was so wet, the gravel truck driver did not want to risk driving into the yard and getting stuck. So I had him dump the gravel outside the gate and I trucked it in myself. A front end loader works best for loading up gravel, but at this time I don't have my backhoe fixed, so the Gradall will have to do. The Gradall has a 471 Detroit diesel. It's the same engine I have in the grader. For the grader, the 471 is a little bit underpowered, but for the Gradall, it's an excellent engine. There's the big pile of gravel. That's a full load. That's the gravel truck and the pup trailer. It's It's about 29,000 pounds. When you order gravel, they usually do it by weight. So for heavy aggregate like gravel and crushed, you have to order it by weight. But if it's lighter materials, then you can order it by cubic yards or cubic meters, just because they can actually get a full box of it. Whereas gravel, the weight goes up pretty high to the point where, you know, that's maximum the truck can handle. So those two piles there, that's 29,000 pounds, and the boxes in the truck were about half full. Grade-all works pretty good for loading aggregate and sand and anything on a pile or anything you got to dig out of the ground. But when the pile gets down to you know, about nothing, you know, then it just kind of moves it around. It doesn't have enough speed to pull it into the bucket. So the last little bit of this pile, I'll have to shovel it in. Anytime you see me scoop up a big chunk of grass or a big chunk of mud or anything that's not good fill, or it doesn't have a very good compaction value, you'll see me pulling it out. That's a homemade bucket on the Grade-all. That's not the one it came with. That's about a 1 cubic yard bucket, so 1 yard bucket. I did some welding on it. Originally when I got it with the machine, it had a big bar in the center that stopped all the, whatever you dug up, it stuck inside the bucket. So I cut the bar out and I put a cutting edge on it, and now it works pretty good. But yeah, the bucket is too big for the machine. But for scooping out sand, it works really well. Ten, 11 buckets, and I can fill up the truck, so it really speeds things along. The only reason I'm still using this machine is the fact it had the 471 in it. If it didn't have that 471 in it, it probably would have went to the wreckers a long time ago. Every piece of equipment I'm using has been pulled out of a field and I repaired it. Even that dump truck, when I got it, it had a seized engine. It's a big block V8 Ford. It's a 531. I'm not getting stuck because I'm not pulling a trailer. The dump truck driver that dropped off all the aggregate there, once the load comes off the back of his truck and he's pulling the trailer behind, then he gets stuck pretty easily, so that's why he didn't want to drive in the yard. But just a single dump truck and load it up, I can make it through there pretty easily. If I were to do it again, I would dump the gravel in the center of the building footprint there instead of putting it beside and then hauling it in later. But this time I didn't have the foundation, I didn't have the area leveled off yet. Another mistake I made was putting the plastic underneath the gravel. I wanted to save the gravel. I didn't want to lose any of it, so I figured, oh well, I'll just go scoop it out with the front end loader, and then I'll pull the ends of the plastic together, and then I'll scoop out what remains. But what happened was when I went to scoop out the last bit of gravel, I kept snagging the bucket on the plastic, and then it made it even harder to recover that last bit of gravel. So yeah, no plastic is best. Here I am pulling out those chunks of grass and big chunks of dirt. If you let those go in with your gravel, this is all fill for underneath the shop floor. So what happens over time is that it's never going to compact as hard as rock or gravel will. Like gravel is sand and crushed rock, and it may compact temporarily, but then that grass and whatever organic material in there is going to compost and turn into dirt. And then it's going to shrink in size, and then that area is not going to be compacted anymore. So you got to get any kind of organics out of there whenever you're putting any kind of fill in. The pile's all loaded up. I'm just trying to scrape the last little bit. Doesn't look like a lot, but as soon as you start shoveling and trying to put it into the bucket by hand, then it turns into a lot of work. The grade all does a lot more work, even if you're just scraping a little bit up. So. So I got the backhoe running, and while waiting for things to dry up a little bit, I decided to dig in underground electrical lines and dig in a underground sewer line for the toilet. And as soon as I dug it in, it filled up immediately with water, even though I didn't dig where the puddle was, but still leaked in because the ground is all sand, so the water leaches through pretty quick. It's about 6 feet of sand, and then underneath that is clay. I'm trying to save what remains of my original formwork there. Even if I have to go back and readjust it, it still saves a bit of time instead of pulling it out and then putting it back in again. And that one side is the only side I'm going to be keeping intact. I'll use it to realign my forms when I start building them again. I'll be installing 2.5-inch PVC electrical tubing, so it'll be just a pipe run through there, comes up through the shop floor and then goes down to the outside, and then when I'm ready to run the wires, I just run some fish tape down the pipe and then pull the wires through. There'll be one on the other side of the shop as well for the septic tank power. This side will be for the solar array, the power coming in from that. I have the pipe installed. I had to divert the water away, so I went and dug a trench and drained the water off from the area, and because it was filling up the hole. So now I can pack the dirt back in the hole, and it's not going to be all soggy with water. Because once the water gets into the soil, it's you can't really squish it out. You just got to wait for it to dry out. The design of this foundation is called a floating slab design. So it's the whole foundation is above the frost line, and so on the electrical piping I have running through the ground from the inside to the outside there, it has a deflection collar on it, so it has a slide collar that can take a couple inches of movement. So if the slab moves up and down and the pipe remains in the ground, and the slab is really grabbing on the pipe, it's going to break the pipe. So, but with that collar there, it allows it to move up and down a little bit, because there will be a little bit of movement with this type of foundation, but not a whole lot. But still, I don't want the pipe to break and then fill up with water later on. So the piping on this side and the piping on the other side has that collar on it. On the shop side, on the ground side outside the shop, it doesn't need it, but under the shop slab, it has that collar there. And the sewer line for the toilet, it doesn't have any kind of collar or anything like that on it, but it's a 4-inch sewer line, PVC sewer line, and it has I just cut another piece of PVC piping and slid it over top. So when the concrete is poured, the concrete will be holding on that outside collar, and the inside piping for the toilet can slide in and up and down inside that collar if there is any kind of movement. So hopefully that'll keep it from breaking. And most likely, unless I later on, when everything's set up, there's heat in the shop throughout the winter, the toilet's only going to be a summer use only toilet. And you can't see it on camera, but the mosquitoes are pretty bad this year. That's what my wife just brought me, was mosquito netting to put over, so I'm not getting all bit up. The pipes are all dug in and the ground is dried out. So now I'm just bringing whatever fill I need to level out that center area. There's one corner that's a little bit low, so I'm gonna bring in a bunch of fill to the center area, compact it, and then dig out the perimeter trench. I don't have any 3/4 crush on site for under the shop floor, which is really good for compacting. I just have a lot of sand in the area, so I'm adding a little bit of 3/4 screened rock, and then I'm going to go fill up the rest of the box with sand and kind of mix it together, and then I'll compact that, and then that'll make a little bit better fill than just sand. And then on top of the sand it'll have I think 6 inches of compacted 3/4 rock. So and here I am just scraping up some more sand. This is brown sand, but some of it is a little bit light. It's really small particles of sand, not really good for compacting material, but I'm trying to get the larger stuff. Usually the better sand is deeper down. I went through here with the grater and I kind of spread everything out, but it's got a good mix of larger particles and smaller particles of sand. The smaller stuff, when it dries out, it just tends to blow around on the top. That's where you get all the dunes from. Like in the desert, that's all really fine particles of sand. And that's similar kind of stuff that's on the surface here. But if you dig down like 2-3 feet, then you start getting some really good sand that works good for building a road base or putting under a shop. This is the corner that's low. It's about 6 inches lower than everywhere else. And here I am tossing out a big chunk of dirt again. So I'll dump it here and then spread it out and then compact it. My old truck may be a little bit slower dumping than it once was, or definitely a lot slower than the new trucks, but it works. And it's always there on the property when I need it. So if I was renting equipment, it'd be very expensive, and then you'd always have to be bringing it back when they say, and or else it's going to cost you a whole lot of money. So I finish, say I'm done work at the end of the day, I can go haul a load of sand. It makes it, it's really the only option. I couldn't rent equipment to do this, unless you can take time off work and just work steady and schedule when you need equipment and go and pick it up. And so in a lot of cases, if you're on a budget, it's a lot better just to get your own equipment. But old equipment doesn't have all the nice options and features like the newer equipment does. Like the back of this box has square corners, so they collect all the dirt gets compacted into the corners, and then you got to scrape it out every now and then. All the new boxes, they have angled corners on the inside to prevent this from happening. But it gives you an opportunity to work on your balancing. My old backhoe isn't as good as a skid steer for spreading out material, but it's a lot better than a shovel, so I'm happy to have it. I named this backhoe Frankenstein because it is a Case tractor, Case 530 with a Ford backhoe on it. I think somebody a long time ago tried to make a old Case 580 backhoe, or a look-alike. You know, somebody made their own backhoe, and then I bought this one at an auction and repaired it. It's a little bit smoky, but it runs good. The reason it's smoky like that is over the winter one year, the injection pump froze up in it, and I had to take it apart. And I got a used injection pump off of eBay, and I changed the pump on it with the one from eBay. Like there's a rotary pump in it. It's a Rusa Master pump, so I changed the rotary pump from the one on eBay with the one that was in there, and the one from eBay puts out a little bit more diesel than the one that was on there, so it's not burning efficiently. That's why it's smoking so much. So maybe later I'll get a chance and I'll change it out with the original pump. So at the moment it's getting too much fuel. I'm not sure if in this video or later on I extend the exhaust pipe height so I'm not getting fumigated, because after using this machine for a little bit you start feeling kind of gross. Yeah, I don't think I extended it yet. Later on I'll add another foot to that exhaust pipe so I don't get sick. It's quicker to add on another section of exhaust pipe than it is to pull the injection pump out and repair it, so that's what I did. There's the area roughly spread out with the backhoe. I'm just going to go and compact it now. The compactor, even though it's a 1,000-pound plate compactor, it only compacts maybe the top foot of soil. So anything under 1 foot, if it's not compacted, it won't get compacted with such a little compactor. So you gotta do it in layers. So you compact maybe 6 inches of soil, you add 6 inches, compact that, add a 6 inches more, compact that. So yeah, the little compactors, they only compact so far into the ground. This one's a pretty good compactor, very easy to use. It's a Amann compactor from Germany. I think that's how you say it, Amann. But hard to get parts. I'm spreading out some more fill in the area where it is low. I'm going to go ahead and compact that, and then compact the whole area. I'll take the laser with the laser finder and I'll check each area to see where it's high and where it's low, and either add some more fill and compact that, or take away some fill and compact it. This will be the last time I use that big compactor. It started screwing up here. I think it's the governor in it broke or something, and I couldn't get it to go past idle. And I never did repair it. I think I took it to the auction and got sold. I'm marking the high and low areas here so I know where I need to add fill or take out fill. If you're not too worried about using extra gravel, then this step isn't really necessary. Once you get it within a couple inches, then you can just fill it up with gravel and level the top of your gravel. But I'm trying to save on gravel because it's gravel's expensive in a large area. Oh, okay, now we're getting to the fun part. The project's actually going somewhere now. I'm welding a flat bar on the bottom of my bucket, so when I go dig the bottom of the trench, it's going to leave a nice clean cut instead of some teeth marks, and that'll make for a much more stable base for the rebar chairs. I probably welded it on a little bit better than I had to. Success! So I'll start digging out along the existing formwork, and then I'll work my way around. I'll use a string line as a guide, making sure my string line is nice and square, as I want the foundation to be nice and square, and I don't want to have to do a whole lot of fine digging with a shovel to get everything to line up properly. The digging took a lot more time than it seems on this video. It's sped up quite a bit. There's some downtime setting up the string lines and checking for square. And I'll be working into the night digging around the perimeter. I'm checking the depth as I'm going as well with a laser finder on a stick. I don't want to go too deep. The deeper I go, the more concrete I gotta use. That's a 1000 watt metal halide or nickel halide. I'm not sure. Whatever the new bulbs change to, but it's a 1000 watt work light. It works really well. If you have something like this, a good light is very handy. But we have LEDs nowadays. The LED lights work a lot better, and they don't use as much power. Though I don't like the light as much, but they definitely use less power. Okay, so the trench is dug, the center area is leveled off within a couple inches. So the next step will be to go around the trench with a shovel, clean out any imperfections. I couldn't get into some of the areas cleanly with the old backhoe, so I'll go in there and shovel it out, and then I'm going to run the compactor around the base to flatten it out nice for the rebar to sit on. And then I'm going to continue with the formwork. You see all those areas where I didn't dig out cleanly? I'll come back with the shovel and dig that out. Dig a little bit closer to the form there so I can get the bottom boards on. But other than that, you know, it turned out pretty good. Not as clean as if I had a little mini excavator, but it is good enough. I can clean the rest up with a shovel. Here I am checking the depth of my dig all the way around, and I did pretty well. There's no low areas and no high areas. Just a lot of digging by hand to do. I'm leveling it out as I'm going. If an area is a little bit low, it's a lot cheaper to add a couple inches of dirt and pack it down than it is to a couple inches of concrete. Though it's not that much difference. You know, maybe a couple inches of concrete all the way around maybe cost you extra $50, but you know, I'm just trying to get it as level as possible. The bottom of the trench is within 1 inch level all the way around. Check out part 2 where I slope the trench, finish the formwork, and get started on rebar.